to come in, but I know a lot of people like to tell us where they're from. But we'll need to open up chat to everybody, not just hosts and panelists. So Linda, can you make sure that the chat is open to everyone?
Sure. Okay, I believe it is.
Let's see. And have you made me a host or a co-host or a panelist? I want to make sure.
I believe I have. Let me just double check. Yes, you are a co-host.
For both cameras?
I will make sure.
Thank you. There we go. Now I can see everybody in the chat. So just always curious where everybody is joining us from. So feel free to pop that into the chat. And Linda, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, so I'm going to start with my remarks. So thank you, Liz, and welcome everyone. I have started the recording for this event. Thank you for joining our AARP New Hampshire sponsored program with a Creative Feast. My name is Linda Hodgson, and I'm your host today. I'm also a volunteer with AARP New Hampshire. The recording for today's virtual event will be available in a few days at https://www.youtube.com/@AARPNH1, and I'll put that in the chat so that you have it. If you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll welcome your questions and address them periodically throughout the demonstration. Our cook-along demonstration today features autumn harvest recipes that we can enjoy. Today's event is part of a series with the Creative Feast focusing on food and its impact on healthy living. AARP has been promoting the health and well-being of older Americans for over 60 years. In New Hampshire, AARP works to bring you informative, innovative, and fun virtual events like today's online cook-along demonstration as a means of connection and inclusion. AARP has numerous free healthy living resources on its website, which include staying fit, wellness, and longevity, information on healthy eating, as well as staying sharp. There is something for everyone, and I'll put a link in the chat to that. Chef Liz built her cooking career in various Boston catering and restaurant venues. After starting her family, she re-entered the food world as a cooking instructor and developed Liz Barbour's Creative Feast. Chef Liz has appeared on New Hampshire's WMUR Cook's Corner. Her cooking demonstrations and recipes and herb gardens have been featured in various publications, including Where Women Cook, New Hampshire Magazine, the Nashua Telegraph, and the Hippo Press. All her programs focus on the premise that we are healthier when we cook at home. We hope you enjoy today's programming. And with that, Liz, take it away. I do see some hands up, so let me see.
So we're, in the past, what we've done is request that people put their comments into the chat, and that way Linda will read them out loud to me. So if you have any questions, that's the best way to handle that. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today and welcome you to my virtual kitchen here in Hollis, New Hampshire. It's a pleasure to be with you. You may notice, for those of you who are returning, that our view is a little bit different. I had a little bit of technical difficulties. So I will be, at the time, I'll prepare things right here so you can see what's going on in front of me. And then when it comes time to go over to the stove, I'm actually going to have to come by and remove the camera that's facing me and take it over to the stove and hook it up. So we'll do our best to work on that together. I appreciate your patience, but I think we can get it all taken care of. So today is fall harvest, and this is a really fantastic time of year across the country, and particularly here in New Hampshire. We're very excited. We have so many wonderful cooler weather crops that are out and available. And so two of my favorite, well, three actually of my favorite crops are now they're just in abundance. So it's very, nice to go and to see all the different varieties. So We're going to be working with delicata squash. Some of you may be familiar with that. It kind of came on the market, I would say, probably about 5 or 6 years ago here in the Northeast as a more popular squash. That is going to be in our recipe along with our kale. Kale is a nice hearty green. Certainly you can get it earlier in the season, but I have to tell you, it tastes better when we have cooler nights. It almost mellows out the strong flavor of kale. In fact, you'll find that farms will actually sell kale after a frost because that freezing overnight and then the thawing out in the day, it wakes it up again, but it really cuts down on that bitterness. So if you have the opportunity to get kale later in the season after it's gone through a frost or two, I think you'll enjoy that. And so for this recipe, it's super easy. It is a one-pot meal. And we're also featuring that with smoked sausage. So I'm going to get both of our recipes prepped here, and then we'll take them over to the stove for the cooking. And, we can be talking about what's going on with the recipes at that point. So it's a pretty quick ramp up on that. So I'm just gonna put this over to the side. And then our second recipe is our fried green tomatoes. So we all remember that, I think, from the book or the movie from years ago. I think it was in the late 1980s. But I had never really worked with fried green tomatoes because I'm used to going to the grocery store and only seeing red tomatoes. But let's just remember that green tomatoes turn into red tomatoes. And I really experienced that when I had a season where I was growing tomatoes and they just wouldn't ripen up, and I knew those frosts were coming in. And I read, take your red tomatoes, put them on a sheet pan and put them under your bed. I don't know why they told me to put them under my bed, but basically you want to put them in a cool, dark place. And those tomatoes, sure enough, within a week or two, started to turn red. They will fully ripen off the vine. They won't be as, I think, flavorful as those tomatoes that ripen on the vine, but you will get full use out of them. Now, in this recipe, the green tomatoes are very firm and they're not nearly as wet as your vine ripened tomatoes. So they're perfect for frying. Our recipe today calls for an air fryer, but I'm going to show you my air fryer. I'm actually going to fry these on the stove in a little bit of olive oil. So many of us don't have air fryers, so I want to make sure that you get a sense of how to do both of those cooking methods. And of course, that comes with a classic dipping of our tomatoes into our flour, our seasoned breadcrumbs, and then and our eggs, not in that order. Now, the other thing that I'm doing, just as a throw-in, is I'm going to make a little bit of a topping for these because that wasn't part of the recipe that you received. But I want to show you something really easy, very flavorful, and maybe a little bit unexpected for you. So we will move on to that. Again, if you have any questions throughout my demonstration today, please put them in the chat and Linda will respond. She's going to interrupt me, so I make sure that I get those questions answered in real time. Okay. I think I can turn up my lights a little bit. It's looking a little bit dim for me. There we go. All right. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep up these fried green tomatoes, and then we'll prep the second recipe, and then I'll walk my camera over to the stove so you can see the cooking of all of them. Okay. So the fried green tomatoes, let's just put these down front and get our tomatoes sliced. Now I've got 3 tomatoes here. It depends on how many people you're serving. The other night, my husband and I did 2 tomatoes, and we really enjoyed them, and they were perfect for leftovers. So don't forget that you can always use your leftovers, just reheat them the next day, and they're a nice addition. All right. So let's go ahead and slice up our tomatoes. You always want to be using a nice sharp knife. I recommend when people are slicing fresh tomatoes that they use a serrated knife because it helps to keep from smashing the tomato, especially if it's very ripe. In this case, you can either use the serrated knife or a chef's knife. I'm going to cut these to about a half an inch because we're going to fry them and they're going to cook for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side. That's plenty of time to soften these up. Now, what do you do with the tops? Well, you can chop those up and add them to a salad. If you want something crunchy, you could give them to your chickens, as I often do. So I just set the tops and the bottoms aside, and got some hungry chickens outside that will enjoy them. All right. Now today, where did I get my fried green tomatoes? I have here in Hollis, New Hampshire, I have 3 major farm stands, and I have so many small homesteading farms that are actually, working their way to selling their own produce. So I have a lot of places to choose from right here within a 4-mile distance. And one of my farms actually sells the green tomatoes. I've seen a lot of people use these in pies, even with apples. Interesting. So something that you can do and consider. Not something that you need to discard, certainly. Take these, put them on a tray, put them in a cool, dark place, and they will turn color. After about a week, I had one on my counter, and it certainly started to turn that rosy pink, and then the next stage was going to be that red color. All right, so here are my tomatoes, all set to go. I'm actually going to add a little bit of salt to them. All right, so let me get my salt shaker. And Linda, if we have any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt. Here we go. Nice little bit of salt here. And then we're going to go ahead and get our coating all set. So the recipe calls for Italian seasoning. And what does that entail? That could be, that's a combination. You can buy one. I've got a curl that's in my mouth. You can buy seasoning already preset, or you can add your own, a combination of basil, oregano, a little bit of thyme, whatever you prefer. If you want to just use plain parsley. If you don't want to use anything, you don't have to. Here I'm using a little bit of my favorite Moroccan seasoning. That recipe is on my website. Let me just take you there really briefly to my website, and let me just share my screen with you.
So we have 2 questions, Liz. One,
Sure.
what types of tomatoes are you using? And then someone is just asking for a link to the recipe.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize. I am now sharing the screen for my recipe, so I'm going to take you there. So if you go to the creativefeast.com, here you'll find where it says Food and Fun is my recipe blog. And just for you, for AARP, over to the side, you can see I have my recipes for the 2024 season cook-along. So the entire season is here, and also the entire season for 2023. So if we look down, we're going to see all of our links to the recipes. You can download these recipes. You can read them off your computer if you like. And then we're going to come right to our autumn harvest recipes. And these are the links here, the fried green tomatoes, and then the smoked sausage and kale. So those are there for you. Again, just go to the website, go to the recipe blog, and off to the side, you're going to see both the 2023 and the 2024 recipes there for you. And then there's plenty of other things that you can check out on my website if you're interested in intermittent fasting as a healthy lifestyle, low carb. We know that that's good for you. And then you can check out my chickens, my edible gardens, and my kitchen remodel here. So I like to share a lot of different things for everybody to enjoy. Okay. And then the other question that you had was, what kinds of tomatoes are these? These are just plain beefsteak tomatoes, but any green tomato is going to work for you. All right. Okay, so here, did you have another question, Nanda?
No, I just said thank you.
Okay, so this is a Moroccan seasoning. Again, if you go to my website, you're going to see, all you need to do is do a search bar in the recipes, and you'll see it'll pop up with options where that recipe is. So I'm looking for, I just wanted a different flavor. When I did this recipe the other night, I just put in fresh basil. So whatever seasoning you'd like to use. So we have a teaspoon of that seasoning. And if you are a herb fan, go ahead and use 2 teaspoons. You can't go wrong with a lot of flavor. We also have salt, pepper. I have garlic powder and onion powder. So this is all going to add flavor to our dish. And I'm just going to get a fork here and then blend those together. So this is my cornmeal. I've got 1 cup of cornmeal and 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. If you just have regular breadcrumbs, that's fine. If you are somebody who has seasoned breadcrumbs, that's fine too. I always like to ask though, just make sure that you've read the ingredients. We want to be careful about, additives for preservatives that are added to our the packaged foods that we buy. So just check everything and make sure that you know what's in there, you can pronounce it, you recognize it, and there are no secrets. So we're blending the cornmeal with the panko because I love that little crunch that the cornmeal adds. But again, regular or seasoned breadcrumbs would be just fine. Then we have about a half a cup of all-purpose flour. And finally, we're going to use 2 eggs. Now, here's the fun thing that I did the other night when I was preparing this. You know how at the end of making something that's a breaded dish that you're going to cook in the oven or fry up, where you have the flour, the eggs, and the breadcrumbs, you always have leftover. What are you going to do with that little bit of egg that's left? What are you going to do with a little bit of seasoned breadcrumbs and flour? Well, all I did was I put them all together. And then I added, it looked a little dry, so I added a little bit of milk, but I had the egg in there to bind my cornmeal and my breadcrumbs. I had it seasoned. There was a little bit of flour in there, and then added a little bit of milk. And then I cooked them up like little corn cakes, and we added that to the meal as well. So it's, there's nothing that's going to go to waste here. Okay, you just want to make sure that you've got all of that egg blended up nicely. And then we're going to go through the classic ritual of dipping our tomatoes. So we're going to put these, let's move these tomatoes out of the way.
Liz, we have a question as to whether you could use eggplant for this recipe.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a really great, you can do anything for it. If you can use this recipe right here and do chicken breasts, pork chops, anything like that could be in its place. So it's very versatile. Just to have a great breadcrumb mixture is going to help you out later on. Okay, so we've got our tomatoes, and of course we're going to go ahead and dip them into some flour. And then here now I've got my dry hand and my wet hand, and let's see how this goes. It never works out in the end, right? You always get those, your thumb and your forefinger are always full of breadcrumbs or flour because of the wetness of your egg mixture, okay? And I'm not going to do the full tray because we won't have time to cook up all of these, but we'll do a few and see if we can get a handful there. Now, I told you that this recipe is originally written for an air fryer. I used to teach classes in how to cook with an air fryer. Well, over time, I've been hearing a lot about air fryers, and I just find that they're fabulous for quick cooking. They really do basically the same thing that a convection oven would do, but in a smaller appliance. So it can be very handy, probably cuts down on about 20 to 25% of your cooking time. But my concern has become the coating that is used on the interior and on the pans and the inserts And because that coating at such a high heat, it's typically around 400 to 500 degrees, that can have some what they call gassing off of the chemicals in those finishes. So I own a stainless steel air fryer. It's a Cuisinart, so that's behind me, and doesn't have that same coating. So just something to think about if you're considering purchasing one. You really want to look into the concept of the coating that's in there, and if that's harmful over time. Are you intensifying chemicals in your diet, which we don't want to do? So just, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and something that, being an informed shopper is really important in both the equipment that we're using and the food that we're eating. So I do like to make people aware of that. All right. Well, it looks like I'm going to have plenty of my breadcrumbs. All right, so I'm just going to do this with 6 of these for now, and the rest I'll do later. Get my fat fingers cleaned up and dried off. And I'm going to do the topping that I told you about. Remember, we're going to go to the stove together with both recipes, and that's because I don't want to keep going back and forth with these cameras. So I am going to continue after our class to bread and cook my other remaining tomatoes. But as I mentioned earlier, if you have leftovers of these, combine them all together, maybe add another egg if you think it needs it for binding, a little bit of milk, or you could use heavy cream or a little bit of watered down yogurt, and pop them onto this, into a griddle, and you've got a wonderful, almost like a Johnny cake. And it's all stuff that you might have thrown out anyway, and you want to use that up. So that's a really quick and easy cooking tip. And for something that you really don't need a recipe for, you're just going for texture, what a batter should feel like, what like a cupcake batter would feel like. It's a little bit on the thicker side, and then you just fry it in butter. Or I fried it in some leftover oil. I cleaned out my pan from frying my tomatoes, and there was a little bit of oil left in the bottom, and that's how I fried up my cake. So, all right, so I'm just going to set these over by the stove, so when the time comes, we'll have them there ready for us. Now I'm going to work on the preparation of that sauce that I told you about, because I didn't use that, feature that in the recipe. But again, I think when I find something that's super easy to do, and I show you how quick and easy with a few ingredients you can put something together, that freedom from away from a recipe can be create really delicious results. So that's why what I'm showing you here. So in my bowl, I had just this, probably about a cup or so, a little bit more of cottage cheese. Now, cottage cheese is very, very high in protein. So all of us need more protein than we realize. And so when you can make cottage cheese, if you are dairy isn't an issue for you, cottage cheese is a really great way to bring that into your diet. I personally use a whole milk cottage cheese, and I love the texture. I will slice up apples and put cinnamon on them and combine that in my cottage cheese as a really nice treat at the end of a meal. Or in place of breakfast, that's my breakfast, because I've got my protein, I've got my good dairy, I've got my fruit, and I've got my little bit of cinnamon. So I'm a fan of cottage cheese. Some people don't like the texture. Did you know that you can put this into a food processor or a blender, and you'll smooth it out almost to the consistency of yogurt? So that's another thing to think about. Now I'm just going to maximize the flavor. I'm going to add in probably about 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. Okay. And now I've got 2 cheeses mixed together for flavor. And then I'm going to add some fresh herbs. I have some fresh basil that I just picked, some fresh thyme, And then I have these little flowers. These are from my garlic chive that are in bloom now. And boy, are the bees going crazy for that. These pollinators love the garlic chive. And part of the reason is that this time of year in our area, there are not a lot of flowers that are blooming and that are fresh, right? Freshly in bloom. And so the bees really love these. So if you are a bee fan, a honeybee fan, get yourself some garlic chive. It will take off in your garden, so just be aware of that. Okay, oh, this smells so good. So this is going to be the topping. My fried green tomatoes. You see how simple that was. Oh, I know. Let's add a little bit of color in there. Here are some calendula petals. So that is going to be beautiful. They don't have a lot of flavor, but they sure add a real pretty color to this. There we go. Look at how gorgeous that is. Perfect. Okay, so when it comes time to serving, we're going to use that. And then let's go ahead and work on our kale dish. And that is going to be super easy as well. Now, over on the stove, I have a, let me just grab it, an 8-quart soup pot, and I put a couple of teaspoons of salt in it. That's going to help flavor my ingredients and also help keep my kale nice and green. So we're going to go ahead, and this is originally a recipe that I discovered for the Instant Pot. So you could do that and do it in the Instant Pot if you want. If you did it in a crock pot, you take the chance of that kale getting super overcooked. I've not done it in a crock pot, but you know, certainly on top of the stove in the soup pot, and then in a Instant Pot is a nice alternative. Now this is a wonderful hardwood smoked kielbasa, whatever brand you like. What I like about this is it is already cooked, so the 8 minutes that I'm going to give to this recipe is going to be perfect to warm this up and cook it through. And also as a smoked sausage, it's going to add a lot of really nice flavor to the recipe. So I'm just going to slice these probably about a 1/2 inch or so. You can go a little bit thicker if you like. Again, they're fully cooked, and so we're really just going to heat them through. Now you can also, oops, losing a couple here. You can also use, if you are a fan of chorizo sausage, these are all sausages that are pre-cooked. Any one that you prefer would be just fine. All right, so we're going to add that to our pot. And then on the second layer, I'm going to add the delicata because that takes a little bit longer than the kale to cook, because the kale really just needs to be steamed. So let's just talk a little bit about this squash. So I've got two that are very clearly different size. So I'm going to stick with the one because it's double the size of this. But if yours are on the smaller side, you can use two. It's up to you. The delicata squash I really like because it has a very thin skin that you can actually eat. So it doesn't require that you peel it, all right? So that's why I've fallen in love with this squash. Let me just get a spoon and I'll show you what we're gonna do with that. So you do want to take a nice sharp knife and you're going to cut it in half lengthwise. Right in the middle. And right in half like that. And then we're just going to take the seeds out. These are going to go to my chickens. Now, if you wanted to, on another dish, you could roast these upside down just like this. If you wanted, you could also slice them, sprinkle them, or put some extra virgin olive oil or regular olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, put them on a roasting pan, and they can roast in your oven if you'd like. Okay, there we go. All of our seeds are out. And we're just going to clean this up and get these sliced. All right, now we're going to slice these. Let the end piece go to the side. It's a little on the tough side. We're going to go ahead and slice these into 1/2 inch thick half rounds. Now, if you didn't have a delicata squash, but you had a butternut squash, you could use that. Just peel that butternut squash, take out the seeds. You want probably about, I don't know, 3 cups or so. You can cut them into cubes if you'd like. I would still do them at about 1/2 inch. You could slice them if you like and just use them in place of the delicata as I've done. You know, that is a nice option. If you don't have squash, but you have, say you have red potatoes or you have Yukon Gold potatoes, certainly go ahead, cut those into, you know, 1 inch cubes, put those at the bottom of the pot, put your sausage on top. So you want to put the longer cooking item towards the bottom. And then you could cook those right up with the rest, just knowing that it'll take, you know, 1 inch cubes should take about 8 minutes to cook. At a small rolling boil, you might want to add a little bit more water so it doesn't all steam off. But potatoes would be a nice alternative. And then you'd have your potato, your protein from your sausage, and then you have, of course, your kale. Okay, in these go.
So Liz, we have a question about whether collard greens or beet greens could be used in place of the kale.
Of course, any one of those hearty greens is going to be really good in your dish because they do like, what we like them to be steamed, because the steam takes that bitterness out of them. And the kale is a nice sturdy green. What I'm doing here is you can see that the kale has this rib running up the back. And so we're going to take the leaves off of that. I'm not going to cook it. I find it to be very, not something that you want to bite into. So it would take a lot of cooking time in order to do that. So I'm just pulling it off and then I'll compost those stems. But you can see how it's just so simple. Just pull it right off. And then at this part, it gets super tender. So you don't have to do that so much. But the thicker part of the stem, you definitely want to hold back on. And we've got some salted water, as I mentioned. And then, of course, when you're done, you can season this to taste. Always feel free to add a little bit of olive oil or extra virgin olive oil to it when it comes out as part of your seasoning. And then you're adding some good healthy fats to your recipe. Okay. And then we've got this. This will go, like I said, right to my chickens. Whoops. And then these, what I would do is you can either rip them into bite-sized pieces. I just take my knife and go right through, just so it's easy for people to eat them off their plate. There you go. And then these are essentially going to steam. So we're going to pop them onto the top. And I am going to move these over to the stove. So let's just, we'll give that me a second. And while I'm doing that, I am going to also move my camera over. So I'm just starting up my stove underneath my pot with my kale, my sausage, and the delicata. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add our oil. So I'm going to bring over my camera. We're going to do the big switcheroo, and hopefully this will go okay. Linda, I'll need you to guide me on how the setup is. If you can, when the time comes to get over there, make sure that you can see the stove.
Okay. That's good.
Oh, good. Okay, and you know what you can do is, for the moment, you can turn off the camera on the cooking, on the cutting board,
Okay.
and that way, actually, you know what, I'll do it. Maybe if I do it, let me see what that does. No, I think you're all set, right? You've got that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great. All right. So now let's go ahead and we're going to use our saucepan. So this is I don't do a lot of deep frying, so I'm not going to deep fry, but I do have straight sides on this pan, and this is about a 12-inch pan. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some olive oil. Now, if we go, if you are frying this in your air fryer, before I get started, you might want to get yourself one of these little misters. This allows you to put your favorite oil in here and to pump up the pressure so that you can actually spray your green tomatoes, right? And you can, the breaded tomatoes, you can spray and put them into your air fryer. And I'll show you the air fryer before the end of class so you can see that. Here, we're going to add probably about a 1/4 inch or so of olive oil. Now, I am going to tell you that I don't use any kind of canola oil, vegetable oil, any kind of seed oil, especially when I'm bringing it under high heat. Those are very inflammatory oils, and I've read so many articles about how our bodies really are not made to be consuming those oils. So I always like to recommend to people, Linda, maybe you could turn my camera back on in the front so I can, oh no, I can't even talk into the camera. Never mind. So I always like to express to people the importance that you don't want to have canola oil, vegetable oil. You want to be very careful of soy oil. All of these oils, which are produced using a multi-process step, you want to avoid them because of their inflammatory problems. Now, this is olive oil, and of course, for years I had been told that no, you should not bring olive oil into a high temperature. But again, I'm reading more articles that are saying that that's just not the case. Olive oil is a naturally occurring oil. It takes just a simple pressing to remove the oil from the olives, and therefore it is much healthier for us, and our bodies are much more adapted to utilizing that oil without those inflammatory processes. Now, I'm just using probably about a 1/4 inch of that oil, and you know, that is going to keep my costs down. I'm not deep frying, I am frying on either side. So just letting that heat up, and also bringing our pot here with our vegetables. You can see already that my kale is getting this wonderful dark, rich green color, and that is steaming. I can smell the smoked sausage, and of course, a delicata are down near the bottom. Now I'm just going to test this. I'm putting this in, and you can see the bubbling happening. That is telling me that the oil is almost ready to go. I think it just needs another second. I'm going to leave that one in there. You do want to have that bubbling, and that will help to ensure that your egg, flour, and breadcrumb mixture will adhere and stay on your tomato rather than kind of dispersing. So I'm gonna give it another 30 seconds or so. Also, I'm going to turn on my fan here just to help pull the any kind of steam or grease that's floating in the air running your, I should have done that about 5 minutes ago, running the vent on your oven is going to help bring the air circulation up, and it will get it all set so that when you're cooking, it's already pulled up into your vents and away from you. And also it will help prevent, you know, the grease that collects up at the ceiling or the wall or something like that. You've got to use your stove vent.
So Liz, someone is asking what resources they should look in for more information about the oils that you were just talking about.
Oh, let's do that. So can you turn my other camera back on, and I will share with you on my website. How's that?
Let's see. View.
So let's turn this on. Okay, let me share with you. We're going to go back to my website. And if we go to where it says food and fun, and actually, let me just see if I have okay. If we go to where it says low carb, and I put in here oil. Okay, so how so-called healthy seed oils are making us sick. So this is an article that I had found that discusses this concept. And here are some of these highly processed oils listed here for you to look into. Now, I will tell you, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I have found that this information is good for me, and I'm very satisfied. I enjoy looking into things like this. And I just like to share it. It's really something that you should look into more. But this article gives you a really basic information about that. And then you can be looking on to other articles that are more, go more in depth. So that's where I have that information. I hope that that's helpful.
Yes, somebody else said that they like a chart that they downloaded from something called Mountain Rose Herbs.
Oh, great. Maybe you could put that information in the chat and share it with everybody.
Sure.
That would be fabulous. Now, Linda, are you having any trouble hearing me while I'm talking? I just want
Nope, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay. Now, look at how beautifully this is going. So let me get my okay, so we want to do this for about 3 to 4 minutes. This is happening fast. So I'm going to go ahead and lower my temperature just a little bit. But look at how beautifully brown they are. Other thing I've noticed when I'm cooking with an olive oil, as somebody who has worked in a restaurant for my husband teases me, I have a very sensitive nose, and I can smell a restaurant whose cooking oil has been way overused. That's an issue with fried food, French fries, any kind of fried food from a restaurant, is that I know, because I've worked at restaurants, they use oil sometimes in too many days in a row without changing, and that is even worse. So that's why I don't buy fried food when we go out, because I know that there's a potential that canola oil or vegetable oil that they're using could be rancid, and it affects the flavor. You're not going to walk in.
Liz?
Yeah.
Liz, you're breaking in and out, I think, as you're just moving about.
I'm sorry. How's that? Is that a little better?
100% better. Yep. Yeah. A couple people just said they were having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm moving over, so I'm just going to direct my microphone. Okay. Now I'm just going to again lower down my my heat, and I'm checking out, I'm just checking out how my delicate squash is. And if you, give it a little poke, as long as it's pork tender, then you know that it's finished. Look at how gorgeous these are. Wonderful, nice and crispy. They're almost done. We'll take them out and I'm going to put them onto a pan with some paper towel. And then we'll be all set to plate those up. I'm going to use some beautiful, when I bring you back to my, you can see these gorgeous black plates. Sometimes the presentation makes the dish. So I always like to keep a lot of fun plates and things for when I am sharing my recipes with friends and guests. Okay. Now we'll go ahead. We're really doing very well with our fried green tomatoes. I'm going to pop them onto our paper towels. I've turned off the stove, and I'll come back, like I said, after class. I'm going to come back and fry up the rest of my tomatoes and give our other dish just a few more minutes there. So I'm going to go ahead and move this camera one more time with us. So you let me know when it's in the spot.
That's good.
Perfect. Right, rolled with it, and we did just fine. Okay. All right, now we're back in front. And you guys can see our space. Okay, so here we are. Hello again. All right, now you can take a paper towel and just dab off the top. These are so crispy. And when they're crispy, oh my gosh, this is so delicious. All right, now we'll plate this up. Let me get get my tongs here. And so here, we're gonna pop a couple of these right onto our plate like that. Beautiful. And then take some of our cottage cheese topping. Of course, you could use tomato sauce if you wanted to. You could use, you could even put these on top of the dish, that I'm preparing with the smoked sausage, etc. But look at how beautiful that is. And now we've added this wonderful healthy element of the high protein cottage cheese. If you want to add a little heavy cream to that cottage cheese mixture, then it would give a little bit more of a saucy finish. That would be delightful. And then why don't we just stick a little calendula right in there and make that even more beautiful. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and take our other dish off the stove. So here we have our sausage. Just going to pull that away. Oh my goodness. This is lovely. So let's plate this up. This is a one-pot meal. Something that everyone is going to love. Bring out, look at how beautifully bright green these are, our kale. We're going to add our delicata squash, which is cooked perfectly, nice and fork tender. Nobody is going to shy away from that. All in one pot, all in probably maybe 8 to 10 minutes. Okay. I still have plenty of water in there because, the kale as a vegetable and the squash, they give off water. So the water didn't evaporate. It just steamed. And there we go with our sausage.
My mouth is watering.
I know. Well, wait, I get to eat this for lunch too. And then here we are with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. I'm just going to drizzle it on. This takes the place of a sauce. If you're wondering, what am I going to put as a sauce? Just use a nice extra virgin olive oil. If you want to do a little bit of salt on top, that's fine. You could also use a little bit of Parmesan cheese. You could use feta cheese would be delicious on this. So lots of different options. These are two really very simple dishes to make. But their delicious factor is way high. So I think we're all set with our dishes today. And you've got 3 recipes essentially. Linda, do we have any other questions before we go?
Yes, there's one that says, does the water remove the flavor of the spices?
No. Well, I didn't put spices in this one. But you can actually, if you know, there is a little bit of water in here if you want, you can drizzle that on top. But this is where I use those Moroccan spices, and they smell delicious because, of course, the heat helps to bring out the flavor and the scent of dried spices. So it's perfect for this.
Well, thank you, Liz, for today's lesson and cook-along demonstration. These recipes look amazing, and I can't wait to try them. Today's cook-along demonstration is one of many upcoming virtual event offerings provided by AARP New Hampshire. So please visit www.aarp.org/nh to learn of other virtual events, which include getting gentle yoga and education webinars. Also, if you're interested in volunteering for AARP New Hampshire community team, contact us at nhaarp@aarp.org. So our next cook-along class with Liz will focus on stovetop breads. So please join us on Tuesday, October 15th at 2 o'clock for this fun class. And you can register for that class at www.aarp.org/nh. So thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day. And Liz, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. And thank you for your patience with the camera. I do appreciate that.
Alrighty. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.